Israel are continuing to trade strikes in a fifth straight day of conflict. Iran has launched nearly 30 missiles at Israel, with alerts activated across many areas. There have been more explosions in Tel Aviv and strikes also happening in central Israel. Let's speak to Noor Auda in the Jordanian capital Amman. She's there because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. So what does the aftermath of these latest strikes look at this hour, Noor?
Well, with this latest barrage, Sami, we know less than what we know happened, because there were direct impacts in several locations in the central area in Israel. We know that several buses caught on fire. In a larger Tel Aviv area, there was a direct impact as well. But in Herzliya, the Israeli military censor has forbidden the publication of any material that can indicate the specific target that was actually struck. And this usually means that it is of some sort of military or intelligence or strategic significance. The military censor, of course, having tightened the restrictions on publication overnight, threatening journalists who defy those orders with possible imprisonment. In the meantime, of course, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has said that in Herzliya, their target was an intelligence complex in that area. We know one such building exists, but that is the claim that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard are making, and we're waiting to see if there is any Israeli response.
And what else are we hearing about the Israeli statement that they've killed a top Iranian commander?
This is the second Iranian commander, a wartime chief of staff that Israel has assassinated since Friday, Sami. And this is part of its effort, first of all, to highlight its superiority in terms of intelligence, if you will, to disrupt the chain of command. And that is a stated goal, because as far as the narrative is concerned, what we're hearing from Israeli officials is that targeting the chain of command in the Iranian forces would lessen or debilitate Iran's ability to strike back, to retaliate against these non-stop Israeli airstrikes all over Iran. In addition, of course, to targeting the weapons manufacturing, the air defense systems, the launchers of ballistic missiles, as well as, of course, the nuclear facilities. That is the narrative. We've also heard from the Israeli Minister of Defense, Sami. He's almost prolific in the past few days, and he has gone as far as threatening the supreme leader of Iran with the same fate as Saddam Hussein if he continues to, quote, commit crimes against Israel. We've heard him, of course, threatening the residents of Tehran, saying that Tehran will burn, and so on. And we've heard from the Israeli Prime Minister in previous days talking about the possibility of regime change. This is the kind of rhetoric, the kind of atmosphere that we're in still, one of war and promises of more escalation.
Thanks so much. Noor Auda there, reporting from Amman in Jordan. Israel says it's killed the Iranian army's wartime chief of staff, as Noor was explaining there. Tel Aviv identifying him as Ali Shadmani, Tehran's most senior military commander. Tehran is yet to confirm the claim, but multiple buildings have been struck in Tehran by Israeli missiles. 3 people have been rescued from the rubble of a destroyed building. Air defense countermeasures were launched in Natanz, a strategic location with nuclear installations. Video has emerged of the destruction inside Iran's main broadcaster following an Israeli missile attack on the building. Studios and newsrooms where journalists sat at their desks have been reduced to ashes and charred debris. The Committee to Protect Journalists has condemned the attack, which killed 3 television employees. Let's bring in Tawheed Asadi, who's live for us in Tehran. So Tawheed, from Tabriz to Natanz to an attack on Ali Shadmani. What are we hearing from Iranian officials on all of these Israeli strikes? Oh, Sammy, so many new lines are coming as the escalation has ramped up to an unprecedented level here in the capital, seeing the strikes by the Israelis and, of course, the retaliatory reactions by the Iranian side. We hear the sounds of explosion from time to time here in the capital as a result of interception by the air defense system. Also, we hear smokes coming out, and one of them you can maybe see behind me in the picture, and that would be related, according to the initial reports, from the targeting of one depot, from one fuel depot, as Israelis are attacking actually the infrastructures, the fuel depots inside the capital and across the country. We also have had reports from Tabriz about new attacks by the Israeli forces, and here in Tehran, the situation seems a little bit, not a little bit, I may say, quite challenging, specifically after the Israeli warnings followed by the U.S. President Donald Trump, who came out to ask the residents in Tehran to evacuate the city. So you see this anxiety among ordinary citizens. But speaking of the prospects, I had a chance to talk with one of the Iranian high-ranking security officials to talk about this entire situation. He told me that Iran is not going to accept to stop striking back under this circumstance, while Iran is ready to start a line of negotiations in case, and only in case, its red lines are observed and considered. He also told me a very interesting and important point. He said that in case we see a possible U.S. intervention into this escalation, that runs the risk of dragging the entire war into a regional level. And also, he said that the current strategy by the Israelis have not fulfilled their objectives, and they are getting into new ways of attacking. And he also said that we are ready to war and to get into war with the United States, and that's something we have been prepared for the past 1 decade. So that sounds like a very clear message that Iran is trying to send to the Americans, that in case we have further players, further actors and factors getting involved in this already escalated situation, that runs the risk of a regional war. Something Iranian president previously said about this idea. He said that we're not interested in expansion of the war, but at all events we are under an imposed war, and the consequence of which remains at the time being, based upon these statements, not really clear.
And we're getting more and more statements from Donald Trump telling the residents, the people of Tehran, to get out of town, talking about a complete give up. Are we getting any reaction to this from Iran?
Well, actually, we are talking about a city, Tehran, which is densely populated. We've got around more than 10 million citizens living here in the capital, but this is Tehran province, in which Tehran city is located, which hosts more than 14 million people. So it might be like sort of impossible to evacuate such a huge amount of population first. And then secondly, we've got different reactions, different sentiments when we speak to people. A group of people decided to leave the city to go to other cities nearby or anywhere else, but still we've got a part of the population who has decided to still stay in the capital. Compared to the ordinary days, we see less and considerably less traffic if we go outside at these different streets. And you go to the petrol stations, you see long lines of people who are trying to fuel their cars. But still, speaking of the utilities, things seem to be at a normal and acceptable situation in most of the parts of the capital. People are anxious, and that goes without saying, but at the same time, they are extremely angry. They are extremely angry seeing that these strikes not only do they target the military and nuclear sites, but also they have targeted the very ordinary citizens and the very residential buildings and living casualties, civilian casualties. Hundreds, if not more, has been reported so far.
All right, thanks so much to our correspondent in Iran, Tawhid Asadi there.
Israeli forces have killed more than 70 Palestinians across Gaza since early morning on Tuesday. More than 50 of them were killed in Khan Yunis while waiting for food. Gaza's health ministry says Israeli tanks opened fire on crowds of people waiting for aid trucks to arrive in the south of the Strip. At least 200 Palestinians are reported to have been wounded. The injured and dead were taken to Al-Nasser hospital, which has been overwhelmed in its efforts to treat the wounded.
Tens of thousands of civilians were gathered in the large square, waiting for aid. All of a sudden, 2 Israeli bombs were dropped in the middle of the crowds. Dozens of civilians, including children, were killed. More than 200 innocent civilians were blown apart. Body parts were scattered all over the place. The number of victims is way more than those brought to the hospital. No one could reach them to provide help.
Hani Mahmoud joins us now live from Gaza City. So, Hani, what are we hearing from some of those Palestinians about the killings of 50 Palestinians when they're waiting for food?
Well, Sammy, at this point, it's quite heartbreaking as the number keeps increasing by the hours. Let's just start from the hospital, Nasser Medical Complex in the city of Khan Yunis, that is now overwhelmed with many of the cases, many of the critically injured, close to 200 people, women and children, elderly, who were at the bomb site when the Israeli military opened fire indiscriminately, killing close to 50 people and injuring close to 200. All of these 200 were transferred to Nasser Medical Complex and the nearby field hospital. The majority are in Nasser Medical Hospital. This is what the hospital had to do in order to accommodate the large influx of injury. They had to make a decision of discharging many of the cases inside the hospital, critical ones, need of continuous, constant medical care. They had to be let out of the hospital to make room for the injured ones who arrived at the hospital. For close to 3 hours, non-stop, civilian vehicles, carts, the animal, drone animals, carts bring in